Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And just sitting outside, relaxing. It's cloudy today. It's like a beautiful fall day because it's kind of warm. It feels like it's like upper 70s, maybe lower 80s, and it's not sunny at all. It's like completely overcast and cloudy, but there's kind of like a soft breeze going. It's just a really, really nice day. So, I'm trying to film some videos, and then my husband is at a work event today, so he should be home here in just a little bit, and then I think that we are going to get pizza again tonight, and maybe watch some movies or something like that. I'm in the mood for scary movies, so I think that we're gonna probably watch some scary movies. So anyway, I brought the two Melody Beatty books out, so I wanna read from them. Let's see. You know what actually I should do before I read those is I should get on here and I should look at the comments and see if anybody has asked me to discuss anything. Hold on a second, I just have the channel pulled up, and see if anybody has asked me to discuss anything on here. Let me look at the comments really, really quickly. Okay, hold on, this is a long comment. Okay, people are just saying the nicest comments. I really, really appreciate it. I'm gonna go back in there and read those in just a little bit from the video that I did the other day. I haven't read the comments on the video from the other day. I was just looking to see if anybody was like, can you please talk about this? So if you want me to talk about something, please put it in the comment section and I will make a dedicated video to it because I love doing those videos, and I haven't actually done those in a while. Oh, why'd I put my reading glasses down when I'm getting ready to read a meditation? Alright, so let's get into the language of letting go first by Melody Beatty. It is, I pulled it right up. It's a short meditation today. And the meditation is called Trusting Ourselves, September 22nd. Many of us believe that heeding the words of God or our higher power meant following rigid rules, an instruction booklet for life. Many of us now believe differently. The rigid rules, the endless instructions, the exhortation to perfection are not the words our higher power whispers. The words of God are often those still, small words we call intuition or instinct, leading and guiding us forward. We are free to be who we are, to listen to and trust ourselves. We are free to listen to the gentle, loving words of a higher power, words whispered to and through each of us. Today, help me, God, to let go of shame-based, rigid rules. I will choose the freedom of loving, listening, and trusting. Okay, this is gonna be this is gonna be a video that I don't think I've ever. Well, I mean, I've talked about certain things to do with this in here. I'm just telling you where my gut is going, okay? But this is probably gonna be a video that either people are going to be like, why is Peter talking about this? Like, this is not about meditations. Or, let me pull this down just a little bit. Or people might be offended by the things I'm saying. So I just want to say that in advance, because I'm going to talk about religion today in this video. So it says in here, she says at the beginning of this, many of us believed that heeding the words of God or one higher power meant following rigid rules and instruction booklet for life. Many of us now believe differently. The rigid rules, the endless instructions, all that. Okay, the exhortation to perfection are not the words our higher power whispered. So here's the thing, right? So I was raised in a Lutheran church, and it was a very liberal Lutheran church. There are several different kinds of Lutheranism, and there's, I don't even remember what the kind was that I went to, but there's Missouri Synod, which is very, very strict, almost to some degree kind of like Catholicism, and that was not the one. I can't remember what the one that I was called, what I was in. Somebody that's Lutheran below will know, and they'll say. So anyway, but I was raised in a church that was very liberal. I mean, it had all the things that church has, stained glass windows. Our church was absolutely gorgeous. It had, I mean, it was like an old church. I loved it, you know? And it had stained glass windows and Sunday school where you learned in, you know, coloring books about Noah's Ark and the parting of the Red Sea and, you know, Moses and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, after my mom would teach Sunday school, I would go to Sunday school, and then afterwards, we would go and hear the sermon, and the sermon was always very centered around like love and kindness. I think that's probably like some of that kind of stuck with me through the years, and that's why I still have that today. Even as a little kid listening to the sermons, that I had no idea what he would always refer it to a current event. And the pastor that we had at the church was just really a kind, nice guy. And I can remember my mom, actually, she got sober and she did her 5th step. So in recovery, we do a 4th step, which is a searching and fearless moral inventory. And it can be, it doesn't have to, but it can be kind of a lengthy process. And then the 5th step, you share that with another person. Typically, people share that with their sponsors, but you don't have to. You could share it with a psychiatrist. You could share it with, you know, some people do 5th step groups, and they share it in a group, a recovery group. I think that would terrify me, but I've had friends of mine that have done that. Friends of mine that got, I think might be more of like a Florida thing, because I've had a couple friends that have gotten sober in Florida, and one of my friends, like, he did like a group, like he was working, like, they're workshops, right? Sometimes where you work steps in a workshop. And when they got to the 5th step, they all share their 4 steps. I think I would, like, there are things that, like, only me and my sponsor need to know, if that makes sense. You know, I mean, they're not, like, really, like, out there. I mean, nothing that would shock you, right? But for me, it's like, you know, just 2 months ago, I started talking openly about my OCD because I was so ashamed of it. So, and with the help of my therapist and my sponsor, I was able to start openly talking about it. So it's stuff, that's not it, but necessarily, but, you know, so, but it's recommended that you obviously do it with your sponsor, because your sponsor is the person that's going to walk you through that. Not to mention, some of the things that come out in your 5th step are things that will come out in your 8th and 9th step, your amends process. So, when my mom did her 5th step, she did it with her sponsor first, and she had like a very peaceful, serene moment, this flowing well in Carmel, and this little picnic area, and her sponsor brought her a stone that said Serenity on it. I wanted that same experience, but I didn't. We were in my sponsor's basement while his kids were running around upstairs, and his wife was shouting down if we wanted Kentucky Fried Chicken. But I look back at that, and it really spoke so much of who he was as a person, and he has since passed of a heroin addiction, which breaks my heart. You know, he and his wife had gotten divorced because he started using again, and he was unwilling to get sober, and so she couldn't stay because she was sober, and so she called me. I got another sponsor, my sponsor that I had for the majority of my life, and she called me about, I think, like 4 years after that, and she said, I just wanted to let you know that Steve passed away. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? Because I didn't know that he had gone back out there and things like that. I kind of had a clue, but because he didn't show up. Well, this is a long story, but he didn't show up. Oh, hold on a second, somebody's delivering something. Okay, I'm back. He was delivering this package for, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 minutes. And I was sitting here and I was like thinking about Steve. I don't know that I've ever said his name in a video before, but he passed away so long ago. I mean, 24 years ago or something like that. And, like, he taught me so many things, you know. Worked steps with me for the first time, taught me how to be sober, taught me how to be my authentic self, because he 100% was his authentic self, you know. And, I think a lot about, well, so anyway, she called me and she told me that they had found him, and he had been dead for a couple of days, and they found him. Which is the story of a lot of my friends that have passed from overdoses, especially like heroin or opioids, is that they'll have passed and they'll find them 3 or 4 days later, you know, in their apartment or their house. And I think, you know, like, addiction is so lonely anyway, to then have been introduced to recovery, which is so friendly and such a family situation, and then to die alone, you know, in the midst of drugs, like, it breaks my heart so much, you know, when I feel like we surround people with love and recovery. I don't know, it really makes me sad, you know. But anyway, he taught me so much. I was just sitting here thinking about him and how sad it makes me that so many people that taught me really wise things and how to stay sober and how to live a right life and how to be a person of character, so many of those people are still alive and are working programs and are still role models to me today. I mean, I have friends of mine that are 70, 80 years old that were in this program when I came in that are still here, and I love seeing them. There are also friends of mine that have passed, like 2 of my sponsors that passed recently. Well, he passed 24 years ago, but 2 of my sponsors passed in the last year. They were both sober when they passed. One of my sponsors had 2 years more than me, so at the time he would have had like, well, 27 or 28 years. My other sponsor had 40 years of sobriety, I think 40 or 41 when he passed. And so, I mean, they were both sober, you know, and people do die sober and live fantastic lives, you know. And my one sponsor died of lung cancer, and the other sponsor died of it's just a really sad story. But anyway, he had some health conditions that, and then he like fell out of his bed and things like that, and it just kind of went downhill from there. But he was a lot older as well, so, but he lived a great life. Like, I mean, I know that if I saw him today, right, like he'd be like, don't be sad. Like, I lived an amazing life. I was sober for 41 years. I was surrounded by love. I got a lot of great friends. My other sponsor I saw the summer before he passed, he was the happiest he had ever been, you know? So there are people that die sober, but there are also people that don't. And there have been so many friends of mine. You know, I think sometimes when I talk about friends of mine that have passed in sobriety, maybe this is not true, but I sometimes feel like the assumption is that those are people that are earlier in sobriety, and you know, they've got 30 or 60 days and they go back out and they pass away, and that is true of many cases. I have had several, I wouldn't say many, I would say over the course of 28 years, I've had 5 to 10 friends of mine, good friends of mine, that had double-digit years of sobriety, anywhere from 10 to 25 years of sobriety, that chose to go back out and start using again, and then passed away from the disease of addiction. And when people say things like, why do you still go to meetings, why do you have a sponsor and whatever, I do that because it's terrifying to me that that could happen to me. And I have to remember that I only have a daily reprieve from the drink or the drug, and that could happen to me. I don't, like, our minds, anyway, are so tricky as human beings. As an addict, okay, like, you talk about the mental compulsion to drink and the mental obsession, like, you have no idea, like, what my mind has done in the last 28 years, you know? I've told this story before on here, I think, but years ago, it was before I was on YouTube. I've been on YouTube. It was probably like 10 years ago. So I was, what, 18 years sober or something like that. I think it was, I don't remember if it was before or after I came back into the meetings, but I think it was after I came back into the meetings. Alex, so we used to, like, go to VIP. It must have been maybe before, I don't remember, honestly, but anyway, we used to go to these VIP things when we would go out. Because they would, like, give us these VIP sections and stuff, and then as we were walking out the door, they would be like, here, and they would hand Alex, like, a huge bottle of, like, Grey Goose, right? Or some kind of liquor that was sponsoring whatever event that we were going to. And so we would bring it home. I mean, at one time, we had literally, because I would say, I don't, like, you know, the wine in the house is fine, stuff like that, like, little, you know, cutesy stuff, that doesn't bother me. But, like, I do not want, like, a huge, like, gallon of Grey Goose just, like, opened and sitting in our freezer. Like, that's, like, one time my husband, like, he went to the pool with his girlfriends, and they brought beer, and he brought one beer back because he thought he might want it, and he had, like, this one beer, and it sat down there the whole summer, and finally, like, one day I was just like, I mean, this is a person that's actively working a program, right? Like, has a sponsor and everything. And we were in the kitchen one day, and he goes, you seem real irritable, and I go, could you just take that beer out of the refrigerator? And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, the beer in the refrigerator. That I literally, like, every time I open the refrigerator for, like, the last 3 months, and I don't think about drinking, but I don't know what it was about, I wanted a cold beer at the pool that summer, you know? And he goes, there's a beer in the refrigerator? Like, this is a person that's not an alcoholic, right? And I go, yeah, it's sitting right down there in the right-hand corner. Can you please take it out? He goes, you could have just asked me months ago. I didn't even know it was down there. I'll take it out and I'll throw it away. And I was like, okay. So there was a time, because I said I didn't want all this huge amounts of liquor in the house. I said, can you keep it in the garage just so I don't see it? And he was like, yeah, no problem, right? He ended up giving it all away to people. But anyway, there was one bottle that he was keeping in the freezer. Alex had to go out of town for a work conference. It was an unopened bottle. It was like an unopened bottle of Grey Goose that he was going to, like, take as a gift to somebody if we went to, like, a party or something. And so he was keeping it cold in the freezer, like, 'cause some people keep vodka cold, right? And so, I kept on, like, he was gone for, I think, 2 nights to Chicago. Somebody is coughing up a lung over there. So, anyway, he was gone for 2 nights in Chicago, and he was with this coworker of his that he was friends with and things like that. And so, I kept on, like, opening the fridge the first night, or the freezer the first night. Every time I would open it, I would see that bottle. Now, this is the thing I just want to make clear. Like, the desire to use can come out of nowhere. Like, Tanya Jean and I can be walking through Walmart and go by the liquor aisle, and something can just pop up and be like, man, that sounds good. But typically what happens is, if I'm craving to drink, there's typically something going on in my life that I need to take care of. That's typically the situation where I need to pick up the phone and talk to my sponsor, get to a meeting, do some journaling, practice gratitude. There's typically something that's going on. And I think that this was, like, one of Alex's first trips, like, by himself away. And I don't think I felt real safe in the house by myself. I don't really remember, but I just remember that I think that was it, because he was checking in on me a lot. He was like calling a lot. And I think this was like really shortly right after I came back into meetings. And I think he was worried, because I was like in it to win it, like 14 meetings a week and stuff like that when I first came in. And I think that he was like really worried that I was going to like maybe, like, I mean, he never asked like outright, like, are you going to drink? But I think he was kind of worried about it or whatever, which is interesting telling the story. So there was this gallon or whatever it was of this Grey Goose vodka in the freezer. I literally stood there, and he had just called and said goodnight. He was like, okay, I'll call you tomorrow, I'll text you tomorrow, because we're going to bed, I'm turning off my phone. And I was like, okay. I opened the freezer to get some ice for like a Diet Coke or something, and that Grey Goose bottle was like on its side, sitting there, right? And I was like, this is, and literally in 10 seconds, this is how fast it happened, okay? I mean, at the time, I'm 17, 18, 19 years sober. I said to myself in my head, you could go to the liquor store right now or tomorrow morning and buy another bottle and replace it. And, oh no, I was like, you could drink this bottle, turn your phone off, hide your phone, or put it in the garage and lock the garage door so you don't have any access to your phone. Get drunk tonight, and then tomorrow, take all the remnants of the alcohol, the bottle, the everything, take it to the gas station, throw it away in the trash can at the gas station, go to the liquor store, buy an exact same bottle of the Grey Goose, put it in the freezer, and Alex will know no better. That's pretty scary. That's how quick it went through there. Now, I have to tell you, in my 28 years, well, minus, I would say, like, my first 2 to 5 years, because those were really tough years. But in 28 years of being sober, I can't really think of many times that that's ever happened to me. In all honesty, like, have I walked by a liquor aisle and thought something looked good? Have I been sitting on a beach and thinking that, you know, maybe a Corona with a lime looks good or something like that? Yeah. You know, that's one of the reasons why I don't romance it. That's one of the reasons why, like, I mean, on a very rare occasion, I might drink, like, sparkling juice out of a champagne glass, but very rarely. I mean, it's like if I go to somebody's house and they do it, and I don't want to be rude, you know? But, like, it's things like that, because my head can spin with a mental obsession. I mean, and once it's in my head, it won't go away. So anyway, I don't even know how I got started talking about that. I got way off, didn't I, today? Well, anyway, it needed to happen. But this religious thing. So, I grew up in this very liberal church, okay? And I didn't really have any issues with religion. But I never internalized any understanding of a higher power. Like, I remember thinking, you know, like, that these are, like, you know, the 10 Commandments, and you don't sin, and these are the things that are sins, and things like that. But I don't remember, like, really, like, believing, like, I mean, I was like, yeah, God's this, like, person in the sky, and, you know, this big guy with a beard, and whatever. Like, that's kind of what I thought. When I started, like, late junior high and high school, and a lot of it had to do with the folk music that my mother introduced me to, and listening to it, and, you know, challenging authority and thinking things like that. I started thinking about, like, all these things that had been handed to me, and why should I believe them? Like, okay, sure, like a lot of people do, but why should I? I think that was also when I started getting interested in reading books about Buddhism and, like, wanting tarot cards. I mean, I was, like, all over the place with stuff. You know what I mean? I was all over the place with reading about the occult and psychics and, you know, and tarot card readings and, you know, seances. I mean, what teenager isn't kind of interested in that, right, to some degree? Maybe super Christian teenagers probably aren't, but I was, okay? And then I was reading books about, you know, Buddhism, and my mom was like, she was recommending books to me like, you know, The Way of the Pilgrim about Christianity, and she was giving me, like, you know, The Tao of Pooh and things. Well, I don't remember when that one came out, but she gave me, like, one of those books, something similar to that was, like, on my level to understand, like, Taoism and things like that, and because my mom was really into world religions, and so she was giving me all these books to read, right? And so I was like, as I started looking at them, I think even at that young age, what I realized was that my concept was so skewed of what I thought a higher power was, that it was this man with a beard and a cloud that controlled everything, you know? And then when I got sober and I went to that meeting, and then I met that woman in the back because I left the meeting, and she came up to me and said, I said, why'd you leave the meeting? And I said, because they're talking about God. And she goes, baby, take what you like and leave the rest. And that was so, like, mind-blowing to me that I could take concepts that meant something to me, like love, compassion, kindness, understanding, and forgiveness, right? So, for me, and you know, like, I'm really happy that people, as long as they belong to churches that are not hurting people or judgmental towards other people, I'm happy, like my mother, that found respite and safety and a place of love in a church and by their doctrine, but that doesn't work for me like the meditation said. For me, and I am more spiritual today at 51 years old than I have ever been in my entire life. I do not force it down anybody's throat. I mean, if I'll talk about it in a video if it comes up in a meditation, right? But I don't force, like, I don't have conversations with my friend and be like, you need to get good with God. I don't never say that kind of shit, okay? My husband is a straight up atheist. And he'll say things to me like, have you prayed on it? Or like, you know, like, maybe you should read some meditations because you seem a little irritable today. Or, you know, like, this is really good things in your life that are happening. Like, this would be a great time to practice some gratitude so that we can be so grateful. You know, paying it forward with gratitude for, like, good things that are happening in our life. Like, he's very, very aware and respectful of my spiritual beliefs, and I'm very aware and respectful of his atheism. And so there's no reason why you can't have somebody that's very spiritual in a relationship. I've seen religion ruin relationships, you know? But I love the quote that you don't have to be in a garage to be a car, just like you don't have to be in a church to be a Christian. I don't have to be in a church or a temple to be a spiritual person. I sometimes feel more spiritual standing outside walking Boo Radley late at night, looking at the sky, looking at the stars and the moon, and just taking it all in, the breeze on my face, and it's just, you can smell like the fresh cut grass, or the snow, or the leaves falling. You know, like for me, that is God. For me, that is such a spiritual moment. My mother loved the movie with Jim Belushi, and it was called Continental Divide, and Jim Belushi in the movie, or it's John Belushi in the movie, sorry, his brother that passed. John Belushi, he goes up to, I think it's the Canadian Rockies or whatever, it's where my dad used to, wherever it is, it's where my dad used to go camping. And so he goes up there to find this photographer. It's this woman that lives there, right? And so he goes up there and he meets this woman, and like this one day she goes, he says, where are you going? Because he's like following her everywhere to like, he's a reporter for the Sun-Times in Chicago. And he's like, where are you going? And she goes, I'm going to church. And he goes, there's a church up here or something like that. And so she takes him, and he's like following her, and he's like a real heavy smoker, so he's like, and I mean, the movie is hilarious, but it is also so endearing. It's like the movie Educating Rita, which is like probably one of my favorite movies of life that I never talk about. If you've never seen Educating Rita, find it this weekend and watch it. It is about self-growth, owning yourself, and learning about, it was one of my mom's favorite movies. I love that movie in high school. I love it today. I haven't watched it in a while. I should watch it this weekend. Maybe I'll see if Alex wants to watch it this weekend. So anyway, they keep on walking and walking. They're hiking up in the mountains and whatever, and they come to this peak. And the peak is overlooking the entire rest of the Rockies. And she goes, here it is. This is church. And he turns to her and he goes, what? And she goes, this is God. Or something like that. I think she says this is God. Because the last Christmas that I had with my mom when we went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, when we got lost in the mountains in Cherokee National Park on Christmas, when we were coming back, the sun was just coming up over the mountains, and she said, can you take a picture of me? So she got out, and she had this jean jacket on, and this Brooklyn, New York t-shirt, and it was the picture that I used for a funeral, and she spread her arms out like that, and she goes, this is God. That's God to me. And I'm grateful that you guys, or I'm glad and happy that you guys find safety and love in doctrine and in books and things like that. I don't need to follow a list of rules to know that God loves me. I don't need to follow a list of rules to know that God doesn't make junk and I'm not junk. I don't need to follow a list of rules to know that I am completely allowed to come up with my own understanding of higher power. I don't have to follow a book of rules or doctrine to know that my spiritual beliefs are no better than your religion, or your spiritual beliefs are no better than mine or somebody else's. That egotism that sometimes goes along with religion is such a turnoff to me. That people want to say, well, you're not a Christian because you don't go to church, or you're not a Christian because you're gay and whatever, right? Like, when literally the definition of Christianity, and I've read so much about it, trust me, and my fair share of the Bible and the Recovery Bible, which is the Bible just translated into recovery terms. And if you want a Recovery Bible because you're sober, they're all over the internet, so you can find them, right? That's literally the opposite of what Christianity is about. You know, that's why I said my mom loves the book Living Buddha, Living Christ, which talked about how Buddha and Christ were both figures, spiritual figures about love, kindness, compassion, understanding, and forgiveness. And that's what I want to be today. And I don't have to go to a church and find that. And yes, part of it is because I don't want to get up early on a Sunday. And yes, that might change from a year from now or a month from now. A month from now, I was thinking the other day, I think I might want to go to a midnight mass service at Christmas and just listen to the hymns. Because some of the churches, you know, have like a midnight mass and it's all just hymns. And I was like, you know what, I think I might want to do that this year. I think like that might remind me of my mom. All my meetings are in churches. It's not like I have a problem with churches. It's just not where I find my God. It's just not where I find my spirituality. You know? I have no issue with churches. I grew up in a very liberal church that I had a lot of love surrounding me by, with the families that attended the churches, and the pastor was so nice to us, and we were the first divorced family that ever came to that church, and my mom was an elder of that church. My dad had been an elder of that church, and they never treated us any differently when my parents got divorced. In 1978 or 9 or whatever, when they got separated, you know? It's pretty amazing to me. So, I don't believe that you have to be in a garage to be a car. I don't. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.